A very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Delhi Technological University, I, Harsiman Kaur from the Department of Environmental Engineering, extend a warm welcome to the distinguished speaker of the day, Shri Chaitanya Charan. I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Pradeep Sharma, Delhi Technological University. I also welcome Professor Anil Harikraj, Head of the Department of Environmental Engineering, faculty members of the Department of Environmental Engineering departments of DTU, research scholars, participants, and members of the organizing team. I welcome you all for today's expert lecture on science, spirituality, and technology, organized by the Department of Environmental Engineering. This lecture marks the launch of the Sustainability in Action lecture series. Now I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please welcome Shri Chaitanya Charanji with a sapling. Before starting, I request everybody to please raise for the national. It gives me immense pleasure to now welcome Professor Pradeep Sharma, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Delhi Technological University, on the stage to address the gathering with words of wisdom.
Good evening, Honorable. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So first of all, I would like to profusely thank Maharaji for very kindly agreeing to in fact start the sustainability lecture series that we have initiated at the campus. And because this is the need of our. And also I would like to compliment the Department of Environmental Engineering and Professor Anil Harikraj for conceiving the entire idea of this lecture series. And starting the lecture series with somebody like as distinguished and as spiritually elevated as Maharaji. Because for the simple reason that when you start anything on a spiritual note, everything that follows is always positive and all things that are associated fall in place in the right direction. So that way, I am quite hopeful that this lecture series started from respected Maharaji is going to really be very successful. And even though we have not a full house today because of the festival tomorrow, but we do hope that people who are attending the lecture will obviously disseminate the learning that they have from your lecture and obviously convey to all through a sort of a spin-off effect the learning that they get from to the enrichment through your lecture. The topic of the day is science, spirituality, and technology and sustainability. In fact, if you see, as we are a technological institution, and the basis of technology is science. And science is all what we are inquiring about the truth. We are ultimately through the external experimental world, we are experimenting to identify what the truth is. And the experimentation is the external world, which is actually in the domain of physical sciences or life sciences. So the inquiry is this only, to actually identify the causal factors behind the phenomenon that we are observing. And which may be the movement of particles, which may be the growth of individuals in the life sciences domain, or the movement of the electrons around the atom. So we, all the scientists in that sense, are spiritually elevated souls because they are unbiased in their approach in finding out the causal factors which are causing a particular phenomenon that we observe. Which may be a beautiful rainbow, which may be the rainfall, or any phenomenon that we observe. But at times what happens that there are certain limitations in the scientific domain, because the domain of science is the external experimentation, and there are certain limitations within which the scientists have to operate, because everything cannot be experimented in the external world. So for that, something has to be done in the internal world, in the internal domain. And we are actually fortunate to have been born in this nation in which our ancients, more than 5,000, 10,000, even when the history was not written, had experimented in the internal domain and tried to find out the solutions of the mind and the soul, how what the very existence for that matter. And a lot has been done. In fact, we as a nation, or this geographical area that we represent, which we call as the South Asia, or Akhand Bharat, so to say, is existent despite of so many. The Romans have gone, the Egyptians have gone. We have survived as a civilization. It is actually because of the spiritual basis that this land has. And again, all these, I would say, you call them Rishimunis or sages, they were the ancient scientists who were experimenting in their internal domain, trying to unravel or find out the answers which everybody is exposed to or is trying to understand. People who don't or dismiss the questions which come out of their ignorance, always, I would say, are the ones who think that everything ends at the material level itself. But the people who go one step ahead to try to address the urges of the soul are the ones who actually get elevated, and then the nature reveals itself, and this is how the whole journey happens. And everybody in their life gets a glimpse of that spiritual I would say sample of that light. The difference between an ordinary person and a great soul or a Mahatma, which you may say that somebody who is an enlightened soul, is this, that the exposure to that enlightenment for the ordinary soul is limited, but for an enlightened soul is that duration of that enlightenment, or that the glimpse that one sees is for a longer duration and on a consistent basis. And as a result of which, these enlightened souls, they always remain like a lotus and unaffected, and they always are in the actionable mode without being impacted by what is being said or what is being done. They just do these things for the sake of doing things. And in fact, if we see this in the context of sustainability also, the whole thing begins like this. This is something Maharaj is very close to my heart, so therefore I am tempted to speak. So usually what happens is the happiness, the definition of self is related to me only. And then as we grow, my happiness is associated with my brothers, my parents, my children, and their happiness is my happiness. And therefore, as we grow, that when we increase our happiness, then our extended family or friends, their happiness becomes our happiness, and then we further extend it. It becomes the happiness of the society, your own happiness, and then becomes the difference between a spiritual soul and a patriot is this only. The patriot's happiness is limited to his nation only. Whereas a Mahatma or a enlightened soul, the entire Brahman's happiness is his or her happiness. So therefore, that is why we say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. We arrive at that slok or verse when we see everything is interrelated. whatever we do, it has an impact somewhere else. So therefore, we become more sensitive in whatever we try to do, because as engineers, we are very enthusiastically, we apply the principles of science and technology to improve the quality of life of individuals. But in the bargain, at times what happens is we miss out that these actions have a negative implication on the environment or planet. So, an enlightened soul who thinks not just in a limited manner about of the society or a nation, but extends his vision and the actions to the entire command, would be more sustainable, would be more friendly, and would identify ways and means of improving the quality of our life of individuals, in which one would be sensitive with whatever actions one does will quantify, and basically the entire world or the universe becomes one. And that is what, so the end of duality basically leads to that, attainment of that situation, where one becomes of religion, independent of religion, independent of gender, independent of the nation or society. One becomes a global citizen, so to say. So I'm quite sure these are limited thoughts that came to my mind. I'm quite sure we have a very highly enriched and enlightened soul in our midst, from whom we all will be benefited. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It's very well said that Vasudeva Kutumbakam, we are one and one family. So now I invite Professor A.K. Haridas, sir, HOD of the Department of Environmental Engineering, to share a few words on the launch of this Sustainability in Action lecture series and highlights the achievements of DTU. So,
good evening, everyone. I welcome all of you for this initiation of lecture series on sustainability in action. And the first lecture alone has been said by our Honorable Vice Chancellor Dept about how spirituality is related to sustainability, and how is science some way directly, sometimes indirectly related to the spirituality and sustainability related issues. So a lot would be said by Prabhu CHAITANYA, and I welcome all of you despite being a restricted holiday and despite being everyone in a festive mode. I see that a lot of people have come for this event, and since Prabhuji was here in India for this limited period only, we could not change the dates. So that was a limitation, but we are very fortunate that Prabhuji agreed to come to DTU and enlighten all of us today. And we sincerely hope that the ideas and wisdom which would be shared by Prabhuji would be very, very beneficial to all of us, not only in the formal way of this lecture series, but also in practice, in spirit, and we shall be imbibing good qualities which are ultimately leading to a sustainable society, a sustainable environment. That way, I welcome all of you again, and we sincerely hope that you will enjoy this lecture. Welcome again.
I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. Let's begin by trying to calm and center ourselves. So wherever you're seated, you can close your eyes, relax your body, and let's take 3 deep breaths together. And then we will chant the sound Om, which is designed to attune our consciousness with the cosmic energies. So let's take 3 deep breaths first. Close your eyes and just experience the breath. Sustaining us is the life-giving air around us. As it comes in, let it bring freshness and positivity. As it goes out, let it take away all the negativity, the lethargy, the apathy from within you. Now we'll chant all together the sound Om, and we will try to draw out the middle Om as long as we can within the Om. So when we are uttering it, just focus on the sound and let yourself experience the sound. Together. Om. Let's do this 2 more times. Let's take 3 deep breaths and then chant Om. This time as you breathe in and breathe out, notice if your legs, your belly, your back is stretched, it's tense, let it relax. Settle comfortably in the chair. Together. One last time, take 3 deep breaths. This time focus on your face and let your face muscles relax. Let your forehead muscles relax. Especially as you close your eyes, let your eyes rest and relax behind the eyelids. One last time now, together. Continue taking deep breaths as you gradually and gently open your eyes. Thank you. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And I'll talk about spirituality, science and sustainability based on 3 distinct points. I'll use this for writing and drawing a few things over here. So what I'll be talking about will be based on 3 broad principles. One of the points which we are trying to develop is Chit. Chit is consciousness. So we try to become more conscious when we are doing this deep breathing and uttering of Om. So I'll talk about 3 things. Conceptualization. So all our actions stem from our concepts. So how do we conceptualize ourselves, our place and purpose within the universe? What are the broad different worldviews? And what is the concept that the Indian spiritual tradition brings? Then we'll talk about implementation. So how has this concept been implemented in the past? And what are the learnings for us there? And finally, we'll talk about transformation. How does this matter for us? What can we do with this in our life today? So conceptualization, implementation, and transformation. Now there are many thinkers who have pointed out that there is something seriously amiss with the way we have conceptualized the world. Martin Luther King Jr., who is known as a civil rights activist in America, he said about 70 years ago that our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. So we have guided missiles and misguided men. So we see that in many ways, the power that we are gaining over the outer world is extraordinary. Dr. Sharma said that in the introduction that technology, science and technology are about experimenting the outer world and learning. So, broadly, if we consider a 4-quadrant graph, there is outer power and there is inner power. Outer power is how much we can control the things around outside of us. And inner power is how much we can control our thoughts, our desires, our cravings, our moods. And when Martin Luther King said that we have guided missiles and misguided men, what he was broadly pointing out to was that through technology, broadly speaking, our outer power is increased. But unfortunately, it is through spirituality that our inner power can be increased. And we have come to a point in the history of the world where unfortunately the world is here right now. We have a lot of outer power, but we are very much lacking inner power. And that is the reason why there are many times when we understand that what we are doing may be destructive, but still we keep doing it. So the age of science dawned with various thinkers at a conceptual level, like Newton was there. Francis Bacon was one of the first persons who thought of technology as a means, and his quote as "knowledge is power" is well known. Now, he had knowledge itself is power, no doubt. He had a particular vision in mind. His concept was that nature is often harmful to humanity. There are storms, there are earthquakes, there are tornadoes. And he said that through technology, we will get the power to control nature and bend it to our will. And by that, we will make this planet safer. We will make human life happier. So the vision was that we gain power. And by power, we will bend nature to our will. So much of technological advancement is based on this idea. And to some extent, yes, if it is too hot, we would like to have air conditioning. If it's too cold, we would like to have some heat insulation. That's fair enough. However, with this notion, when we have only the development of outer power, so the question comes up, is the lack of outer power the only problem in the world? So, just taking forward this conceptualization, if you consider these 4 quadrants, what we will be trying to do is, we will see whether we can come here, where we have the outer power through technology, but we also have the inner power through spirituality, by which technology can be used wisely. Technology can be used in such a way that it is sustainable. As a well-known environmentalist said that, previous generations of humanity, they inherited the earth from the previous generations. But our current generation is actually borrowing the earth from the future generations. The way we are living may make it impossible for future generations to live. So we would like to go, so this is where we have become unsustainable. Now, in many ways, among these 4 quadrants, if we are here, if we have neither, so if we consider these 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, if we have neither inner power nor outer power, then basically we are just, our life becomes insignificant, it becomes inconsequential. We just can't do anything of value. We may want to even harm things, but we don't have any power to do anything harmful also. So, in many ways, before the advent of modern technology, we did not have the power to bend nature to our will. So when there is sustainable living, because of helplessness, we can't disrupt nature, and that's why we submit ourselves to nature and live peacefully. We are sustainable, but it's more out of helplessness. And that itself is not sustainable. Because humans always want a sense of agency, a sense of control. Now, in many ways, so I would say the world, especially the Western world, is here. Now, in many ways, India, at least a decade or two ago, was here, where we have some inner power, we have wisdom, there is much from our tradition which is of value, not just for the world's spiritual enrichment, but also for the world's harmonious material development. But either we have not used it, we ourselves don't know it, or we haven't shared it properly. So it is important for us to have outer power also. Now, without outer power, if we just have inner power, that was the mode of the sages who would live in the forests. Their mood was, okay, if you want some wisdom, you come to us. But in today's world, there are not many forests, there are not many sages in the forests, there are not many people who will go to the sages in the forests. So it's important that we also leverage outer power. The Kumbh Mela that has happened is by far the world's biggest spiritual gathering. And I have been, for the last 10 years, I have been traveling across the world. In fact, 7 to 9 months, I'm outside India. And I'm in touch with a lot of friends outside India. And if you look at the media coverage, whether it's Guardian or Washington Post, there's practically nothing positive about it. Now, we could say the media is biased. They said, oh, all that is, the river was polluted, or there was a stampede over here. But the fact that the number of people who came to the Kumbh is more than the population of entire North America. And that there was infrastructure which could sustain so much is such a remarkable event. But the fact was that the mainstream media didn't cover it. Now, fortunately, because of the rise of the alternative media, the social media, there has been awareness. So it's just as important to have outer power also. In the Mahabharata, it's described that the Pandavas were very severely persecuted. That the Draupadi was horrendously dishonored. And yet, after that, when eventually a war was to happen, there were more kings who sided with the Kauravas than with the Pandavas. We would say if there was ever a case of moral black and white, it was this. Here is a king or a prince in public trying to disrobe an honorable lady. And who would want to support such a person? But that is the power of narrative. The Pandavas were in the forest and they were not in the kingdoms to tell their side of the story to the other kings. As Duryodhan throughout the forest was telling his side of the story. Now, even if it was a distorted story, but still he was telling the story. So, he was able to garner more alliances. That's why it's important for us to be able to build our narrative, to challenge the mainstream narrative. And that's why it's not just about having inner power. We need inner power and outer power. So, both. So, what we will try to discuss today is that how the conceptualization is about gaining inner and outer power both. Now, moving forward, this idea, what is our vision of nature? I'm still continuing the conceptualization itself. Now, the vision of nature, if you consider at the start of the scientific age, the vision of nature was more that of an enemy. That nature by itself is like hell. If we leave everything to nature, everything will be run down. And yes, in nature there are predatory animals who can kill us. There are diseases and germs that can happen. There are environmental upheavals that can happen. So the idea was we need to have technology by which we can convert this hell into paradise. So in one sense the idea was nature has created a hell, but through technology we will create a paradise. So now in the Indian tradition, the earth is called Bhumi Devi. In the Atharva Veda it is said Bhumi Mato Prithuvyo Aham, that I am the child of the earth. But Francis Bacon and thinkers about his time, I'm not singling out on Bacon here, but okay, he said if the earth is a mother, it's not a mother, it's a stepmother. It's an evil mother who keeps causing suffering to us. and therefore we need to bring her under control. And now we found that through technology we were able to do a lot of things, and we thought we were gaining more and more power. But then we found that there have been enormous side effects. And now as the universe is progressing and life is, our understanding of what the impact of our actions are is becoming more advanced, we are realizing the side effects may be the main effects. So that's why there is more concern. So this would be simply materialism. Materialism is, there are many things wrong in the world and we need to fix those things. The world is like hell and we will make it into paradise through technology. So now we wanted to make it into paradise through technology. But unfortunately, we found that rather than making it into paradise, maybe there are some small pockets of paradise that are there. But overall, I don't have to detail the ways in which the world is in danger. So, in the Bhagavatam, there's a verse which says that quite often, without a spiritual vision, whatever we do, that is dukkha aushadham tadapi dukkham. That whatever we do, the problem, the cure becomes worse than the problem. So, that's what has happened. Now, across the world, there is the environmentalism. In many ways, becoming conscious of the environment is good. But the environmental movement, to some extent, what it says is that nature itself is like paradise. And we humans have made it into hell. Everything natural is good and wonderful. And it is human intervention that has made it into hell. Now, this is a very idealized, even utopian view. Nature, as Darwin recognized, is about evolution of the fittest. It's about survival of the fittest. So, in nature, it's not paradise. Nature is jungle. Jungle is basically what? Might is right. So here, I'll introduce, so the conceptualization part will be a little longer, then I'll be able to remove parts. There are three terms I'll introduce over here. There is Prakriti, there is Sanskriti, and there is Vikriti. So Prakriti, Sanskriti and Vikriti. Now Prakriti is nature. And what is the law of nature? Might is right. The fittest survive. This is simply a fact of nature. It's a brute fact of nature. And that's why Prakriti by itself is like a jungle. It's by no means like a paradise. In the pure way of natural living, anybody who is unfit in any way, that person will be devoured on, that person will be destroyed. So, it's not a simplistic, just return to nature and to the natural way of living. Yes, natural way of living is important. But what does natural way of living mean? Now, people may today say, we want to go and live in a farm. Yes, it's good if somebody can, but for most people, living on a farm is not very easy. And how many people can live like that? And how many people can live? How many people can live sustainably? We may say sustainable living, simple living, high thinking on a farm, but how many can do that? So, might is right. If somebody doesn't have a very strong physique, if they want to go and do agriculture work, it's not easy. They'll need somebody who has a strong physique who can do agriculture work. So the idea is, from Prakriti, either we can go down to Vikriti or we can go up to Sanskriti. So what is Sanskriti? It is might plus virtue is right. Sanskriti is where might plus virtue. So, might is right is a basic fact of nature. But when there is Sanskriti, then virtue is Sadguru. Virtue is good character, good behavior. So, for example, the rule of nature is survival of the fittest. But that is Prakriti, whereas Sanskriti is not survival of the fittest. Sanskriti is sacrifice by the fittest for those who are not so fit. So, for example, if there is a fire, then survival of the fittest means let everybody run away, and whoever can run, they will survive. Those who can't run fast enough, let them die. But sacrifice for the fittest would mean that those who are fit, those who are strong, they will run into the fire to save those who cannot run away. That would some people who are professional firefighters who do it because that's their job. But for many people, that is also their calling. And human culture and human society has to be grounded in Sanskriti. So Sanskriti is not just simply about what kind of dress we wear or what kind of food we eat. And those are important things. But this principle that there has to be sacrifice by the fittest. So what was mentioned earlier about the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that this is possible if we look only at nature. A lion does not think a deer is a part of my family. A deer is simply food for me. But we humans, with our evolved consciousness, can understand that all living beings are a part of the Earth's ecosystem. We want to preserve biodiversity. We can recognize some species are endangered and we can try to protect them. So they are endangered because of maybe they have become unfit in some way, maybe environmental conditions have changed. But still, we would try to preserve them. So now, as opposed to Sanskriti is Vikriti. Vikriti is might plus vice is right. Vice is what? Vice is bad qualities. So Duryodhan in the Mahabharata embodies this search for power which does not care for any boundaries at all. So going back to the earlier diagram which I had talked about. So Prakriti, at the level of Prakriti, outer power is what matters. So outer power will rule. That is just the fact of life. So a person may be virtuous, a person may be good, but if that person does not have power, that person will be overpowered. Now, what we would like to do is outer power plus inner power. That is, going towards Sanskriti is going in the direction of quadrant 1. Sorry, this is quadrant 4. If I go back over here, quadrant 4 is where we have outer power and inner power. Now, as opposite to that, we will have Vikriti is where we go towards 1. There is outer power without inner power. That is, whatever my desire is, I will do it, and who can stop me from doing it? As long as I have power, I will just not care for anyone else. Eventually, such people may not even care for themselves, because the things that they do will harm them in the long run, but they just don't care. So, unfortunately, the way technology has progressed, what Martin Luther King said, that we have guided missiles and misguided men. So that's where from Prakriti we may be going toward Vikriti. See, in nature there is survival of the fittest. One beast may kill another beast. Now animals may kill other animals either because they are prey or because they are competitors. But it is humans who can actually kill other people, other living beings in thousands and millions. Because we have got on one side the technological power, and on the other side we may develop some perverse ideologies because of which we may start killing people. So going down, this would be extremely dangerous, and we need to prevent this. And going up towards Sanskriti is what we want to do. So now, how is this to be done? So this was the first major part of the talk, that was conceptualization. What was the acronym I was talking about? CHIT. So conceptualizing the first part. The second part is I. Does anyone remember what was I? Implementation. Yes, thank you. So now I'll talk about 3 examples of implementation in the past, and then we'll move forward towards what can be done today. Now in the broad Vedic tradition, everybody can have lofty thoughts, but there is an importance that those thoughts need to be translated into actions. So when the Pandavas were living in the forest, at that time they were there for 14 years. How many years? Not 14. 14 was Ramayana. The Mahabharata was 12 plus 1. Yeah. So during the 12 years that they were living, Vyasadeva came and met them. And Vyasadeva told them periodically, now you have stayed here enough, now you move from here. Because what was happening, unlike the exile of Lord Ram, when the Pandavas had gone out, along with that many sages came. See, Lord Ram had not yet become the king before he was exiled. Yudhishthir had already become the king. He had already performed the Rajasuya Yajna. So there were a lot of sages whom he was supporting. And those sages were also, and learned people were very attached to him in many ways. So they said, we want to come with you. And that's how, because he wanted to take care of them, he got the Akshay Patra. But the problem was, it was almost like a city. There's not just 5 Pandavas going in the forest. It was Pandavas were there, and there were so many sages staying nearby, wherever they could. They would create small hermitages and stay. So Vyasadeva told them that so many of you staying at this one place for too long will cause disruption of the ecology. So although you are staying in the forest, don't stay in the forest in one place for too long. So repeatedly, he told them to move, because the forest, they didn't want to convert the forest into a city. When required, that can be done, and they had done that in Khandava-prastha, which they had converted to Indraprastha. But here, they didn't want to indiscriminately cause deforestation. So you stay for some time, then you move out from there. So that was an indication that even at those times, the sages were telling the kings, and the kings were in forest, that you don't go about like this. Now, if we look at the archaeological remains of Mohenjo-daro, for example, there we will see that the water conservation and water recycling systems have been implemented in a very sophisticated way. And there were these bathing ghats, and the way the bathing ghats were constructed, that the water would be used for cleaning, by humans for cleaning, but after that it would be recycled in a natural way. And now the exact mechanisms are something which are still being explored. But the idea is that it was very clear that there was arrangement for recycling over there. So water itself, so we can look at forests, we can look at water. Now, the more we look at traditional Indian system, there is step wells, in places like Rajasthan, in places like Gujarat. There have been systems for water conservation. And now to what extent are we able to replicate it? That's a different question. Now there is a book called Vimana Shastra, there is a book called Jala Shastra. And Jala Shastra is more about, it's not just one book, but it's a body of knowledge. And in the Vedic tradition itself, you could say the broad Vedic tradition, there have been 2 kinds of knowledge systems. There are timeless and there are timely. What that means is that, for example, the Manu Smriti, in it, towards the conclusion, Manu says that these are the principles for governing human society that I have thought of at this particular time. But if a council of wise people feels that human society can be governed better by a different set of principles, then they should come together and see how society can be governed at that particular time. So the idea was that there are certain truths which are like this. The sun gives light to us, sun, moon, they are the sources of light for us. They are timeless. But there are many truths that are timely. Just like we have Ayurveda, there was a branch called Vriksha Ayurveda. So the idea was that we could not only plant herbs that could help humans to heal, but we could plant trees in such a way that they could help the environment to heal. There are trees whose very presence actually doesn't just make the environment look scenic, but also helps. Among the plants and trees also, there are some which are much more conducive for the sustainability of the environment. So Vriksha Ayurveda was where we understood what was the best way to conserve the nature through planting what kind of trees. And so I'm talking about is timeless and timely. It is that things change, nature changes. And as nature changes, we cannot just implement literally the same principles that were implemented say 100 years ago or 500 years ago or 1000 years ago. That's why even in the Bhagavad Gita says the divine, when there's avatar, it is Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. Because things go wrong and things have to be set right. And the previous avatar that has come, the way that avatar set things right, that same thing cannot be implemented the next time. There has to be time, place, circumstance that has to be considered. So that's with respect to implementation. Now this itself is a whole field, and that is a specialized field. I could go into that more, but I don't want to make this talk long, and I would like to have some time for question answers also. So I'll move to the last part now. That is transformation. So there's conceptualization and implementation. How was it implemented in the past, and what can we do about it? Now, one key principle is in the Vedic, in the broad Vedic text, is that spiritualization of consciousness. It is not about turning back the clock. Oh, that we should go and live the way people lived 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago. That's not what is talked about. It's not about turning back the clock. It is about turning on the compass. That there is a compass inside us which gives us a sense of what is right, what is wrong. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha yavetti buddhi sa partha satviki. So in the Gita in 1830, it is said that our intelligence should be such that we ourselves should be able to perceive what action will lead to what consequence, and by that we choose wisely. So what would turning on the compass mean for us today? So I'll talk about two things over here. There is broadly, the Gita talks about when we want to bring about transformation. There is the outside in approach and there is the inside out approach. So I'll talk about these two approaches and then I will end this talk. The outside in approach and the inside out approach. Now what does this mean? That when I was studying engineering, since my childhood, I had a lot of faith in the power of education, in the power of intelligence, in helping us to make good decisions and then to open doors in our lives. If you consider, if this is our life journey, then if we have education, so education can open doors for us to walk through. Technology can open doors for us to walk through. So open doors to a better life for us. And that in itself is very important. But then, as I was growing up, I noticed that there are also trapdoors. Trapdoors in which we may fall in. So trapdoors could be anger. Trapdoors could be depression. Trapdoors could be greed. So trapdoors could be addictive habits. When these habits are there, then the bigger doors may open for us, but these trapdoors means we will fall into them. So when I was studying engineering, I had joined a social welfare organization and I was a part of their educational initiative. So we would go to the nearby slums and I would offer free tuition classes for the kids over there in history, maths, geography, what are subjects they needed. And those kids became friends and they started talking with us. And then soon they would tell that their home life was a mess. Often there was alcoholism among the fathers especially. There was domestic violence. And then I was thinking that, I'm telling them about the World War I happened at this time and the French Revolution happened this time. This war happened at this time. This war battle happened at that time. But in these kids' homes, the battle is happening every day. So how much is the knowledge that I am giving actually helping? So I started thinking that maybe we should diversify and help these kids and their families to become free from alcohol. So I talked with the leaders of the organization. And then we got some anti-alcohol campaigners to come and talk. And we also learned some principles. And it is a small part of the slum. Everybody resolved to stop drinking. And we were very happy. We considered this a big success for us. And then it was semester break. And we went back to our homes. When I came back, to my dismay, I found not only the parents, but even the kids had started drinking. Now, in between, there had been a municipality election. And one of the candidates, in order to woo the voters, had brought truckloads of free liquor for everyone. And everybody had drunk. So that's when this vision very vaguely formed in my mind, that there are trapdoors in the path of life. And we can fall into those trapdoors. And it was not just that, okay, these are uneducated people, that's why they're falling into trapdoors. I was studying in one of the top colleges of India. And I noticed that kids around me were also getting into bad habits. One of my close friends was sliding into alcoholism. He came from a very hard-working family. His parents had taken loans to get him into education. He knew he was disappointing his parents, but he was just not able to give up. And it's not the problem was out there. Although I never had any major bad habits, since my early childhood I had a bit of a short temper. Now having a bad temper is a slight problem. But I had a second problem. I had a bad temper and a good vocabulary. And that was deadly. Just some people have a bad temper. When they get angry, they sputter in anger, they scream, but they don't speak anything coherent. You can understand they are angry, but you cannot understand why they are angry. And they just yell anything, this person has just gone off the rails. You don't take that person very seriously. But if somebody has a bad temper and a good vocabulary, they can be so sarcastic, they can be so biting. They can cause wounds that can last a lifetime. So once it happened that I got angry and I just hurt a close friend terribly. And that's when I realized I had to get a hold on my anger. So for me, the anger was like a trapdoor. So the point is that, why am I talking about this right now? That through, when we had, this what applies at the individual level also applies at the global level. So through the initiatives for conserving the environment, for developing sustainability, we can try at a macro level. We can have government resolutions passed, and that's certainly required. So we can open the bigger doors. But while the doors have to be opened, as long as there is greed, there is the urge for convenience and comfort, we will fall in the trapdoors. So that's why the outside-in approach and the inside-out approach. The outside-in approach is we create social systems which make it easier to live sustainably. So the outside-in approach would mean that there is a social change that is brought about. So this could mean various things. So for example, the government could promote fuel sources that are not biodegradable, that are not exhaustible, that are biodegradable or recyclable. So we can encourage those products. We can pass laws, we can create systems, we can have tariffs. So for example, electrical vehicles are being promoted now. So how far EVs can replace traditional vehicles, that's open to question, but they're being promoted. So that's a outside-in change. And that's at a macro level, that's at a state level, that's at an official level. So wherever there's authority, from a top down, society makes it easier for the individual to do the right thing. That's important, that's opening the doors. So outside-in change is about opening the doors, making things easier. So these are, traditionally we talk about the 3 R's over here. We talk about reduce, reuse and recycle. So we reduce our consumption. Whatever is almost everywhere where the trash cans, we have reusable and non-reusable, we separate them. And to whatever extent we possible, we try to recycle things. So that is what the external facilities are created for that. Now along with that, when there is implementation, there has to be inside out. And inside out is about raise. It is raise our consciousness. It is we have to become more aware. It is our Chaitanya that has to rise. So, now what does raising our consciousness mean? I'll talk about 3 things and I'll end this talk over here. So, raising our consciousness can mean in terms of our interconnectedness. That what I do to others, I am ultimately going to do to myself because it is going to affect me. So when we pollute the environment, that polluted environment is not just going to affect others, it's going to affect me also. So when we see that we are all interconnected, I can pollute the environment, but I won't stay over there. I'll go and stay somewhere else. I can put effluents in the rivers, but then I will have water filters to take clean water for myself. We can do that for some time, but for how long? Once the water is polluted, it's going to be polluted. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is recognizing that because we are interconnected, our actions will have consequences. This is more like a seeing the big picture in terms of the interconnectedness of things. That's one thing. At the second level, it is in terms of looking at longevity. So this is like the breadth. Wherever we are living, we are all interconnected. Longevity is the length. That what we are doing right now, we might be able to get away with things, but we need to be able to see the future. And each individual needs to be able to contemplate the future. See, when you talk about discipline, sometimes people say, why should I discipline myself? So the point is that there is a present me and there is a potential me. You could call the future me. The future me could be in terms of what I will be living 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, or it could be my genes living on in future generations. But so now what happens is, if somebody is parenting and you have to take care of your children. Now the children may say, I just want to enjoy life. And if the children just care for the present me, I want to enjoy, I want to play, I want to play video games, I want to eat good food, I don't want to do anything more. So just caring for the present me will lead to stagnation. That means the child will not grow. The child will not learn anything valuable. The child will not be able to prepare for the future. Not in stagnation, it can lead to degradation. There are 2 kinds of people. Some people are wise and some are otherwise. So those who are otherwise, they just don't see the future at all. So now on the other hand, it may happen that if we care only for the future me, that means, say, if parents tell the child, okay, don't play, don't spend time with your friends because you have to study, you have to have a bright career. I was in America, I was staying at one of our congregation devotees' home, and their kid was talking with me. And he said, I feel as if my parents don't love me. They love a future version of me and they only tolerate me till that future version comes out. It's a very insightful observation. So in many ways, what is happening is, the environmental movement is like that. That, okay, for the future, let us sacrifice all the comforts of today. And nobody is going to do that. So if there is only potential me, there will be suffocation. I can't have any comforts now, I can't have any enjoyment right now. And then eventually there will be rejection. So we can't have, in the recent American elections, the previous government was very pro-environment. And there's the climate change agenda, which is quite politicalized and commercialized. And there's a huge reaction to that. The voters just went against it. And the current government is just walking about the Paris Accords and so many things like that. The pendulum has gone to the other side. So now the West, they use fossil fuels to grow. And now they are telling India and China, for example, you should not use fossil fuels because they are very harmful. But then they have already grown. Now they've already grown, and if they say we don't use fossil fuels, we will not be able to grow. So now they say, okay, you use fossil fuels in a particular degree. So now what happens is there always has to be negotiation. So the negotiation is that how can the present and the potential, the future, both be taken care of. So that each individual has to find out on their own. So when I say longevity means what? It's like, say, if I am trapped on an island and I have food for 30 days and I can think, oh, I want to eat as much as I want and I may enjoy the food today, but after 10 days I may have no food with me. Or I can decide that, okay, I'll take proportionate quantity of food and instead of 10 days I'll have for 30 days. So if we can see in terms of longevity, in the Bhagavad Gita this is called sattva. Sattva is that we are able to see the distance. So one is see the breadth, and my actions affect others, others' actions affect me. My length is my actions affect the future me. And therefore, I need to take care. And the last is, what is raising consciousness is about depth. Depth means that we are not just body. We are body, mind and soul. And the way we can avoid seeking so many comforts at the physical level, comforts that lead to destruction. Many of these green conferences that happen, at one level they talk about big things, but many of the people who attend these conferences, they come in their private jets. And these private jets cause a huge amount of pollution. So what happens is there is a certain level of hypocrisy. What is that? This do as I say, not as I do. So rules for thee, not for me. Really uncomfortable. But he said what he has observed is that in the West, this is not a generalization of all of West, but broadly speaking, people's thoughts are very agitated. There is no inner enrichment. And because of that, there's comfort at the level of the body, but at the level of the mind, people are comfortable, but they are also miserable. So it's like people are comfortably miserable. At the level of the body, there's a lot of people in AC room, but the mind is so agitated. He said, on the other hand, he said that when he came to the Kumbh, it was uncomfortable, but it was uncomfortably peaceful. Not just peaceful, beyond that, it was also joyful. So now, of course, what we would be best would be, we can be comfortably peaceful, we can be comfortably joyful. But there will always be some discomfort. And as long as we are seeking happiness through externals, no, we will not be able to be sustainable. We need to be able to find happiness internally. And that's where spirituality can be the game changer. So when we have spirituality as a source of inner contentment and inner enrichment, that's when we can truly be sustainable. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. My topic was science, spirituality and sustainability. So I talked about three things. Anyone remember the acronym? CHIT. So C-I-T. C was conceptualization. Thank you. So in conceptualization, I talked about three main things. First was the idea of there is power, which is there is outer power and there is inner power. So much of the West is over here, where as Martin Luther King we have guided missiles and we have misguided men. Much of India was where we have a lot of wisdom, but we lack power. So from wherever we are, we need to go to a place where there is outer and inner power. So I talked about the concept of nature, that the vision of nature, some people might see that it is hell and we will make it into paradise. That's what the vision of technology was. But we are not made into paradise, we are made into just a different kind of hell. So the other vision is those who are climate activists, they say, okay, nature is already like a paradise, it's we humans who are making it to hell. It's not that simple either. So the balanced understanding is what? That there is Prakriti. What are three terms? Prakriti, Sanskriti and Vikriti. So Prakriti is basically might is right, survival of the fittest. That is a basic fact of life which nobody can deny it. So we humans are animals, but we are also more than animals. So it is might plus virtue. So Sanskriti is where we need outer power, but we also have the inner power so that we can use it properly. So might plus virtue is right, and Vikriti is might plus vice is right. So unfortunately today we are in this situation where through technology and through ideology, humans are killing thousands and millions of other humans, or to speak of other life forms. So we don't want to be in this place of Vikriti. And then how do we come to the level of Sanskriti? So in terms of I was implementation. So I talked about this briefly, because this is more a theoretical body of research. I talk about water conservation, where there were natural systems for water conservation. I talked about forest conservation. The Pandavas in the forest, they took care that they didn't stay at one place for a long time. And then I talked about Vriksha Ayurveda and Jala Shastra, where trees were considered in such a that they could be recycled. Now Vastu was about not just sacred architecture, but it was about architecture designed in such a way that there is natural ventilation, there is thermal regulation, and that way the minimum energy consumption would be there. So Mohenjo-daro is an example of that. And T was transformation. So transformation I talked about two ways. One is outside in, that is where at a macro level changes are there. The government does some changes, society does some changes. And the other is inside out, where the individual feels inspired to change. So at the macro level we can have reduce, reuse, recycle. So for this, systems need to be created. And the systems are created, then that is good. But we need to, the last is raise our consciousness, raise our chaitanya, by which we individuals will feel inspired to make a change. And for that, what do we raise means? We look at the breadth of our existence. Breadth of our existence means we are interconnected. If the West causes pollution, that is not going to affect the West only, that is going to affect India also. And then, if India is affected, the effects will go into the West also back again. So, our actions affect others, and because we live in an interconnected world, that's the breadth. Then there is the length. We saw that how there is our actions will, my present actions will affect the future me. And that's why there has to be balance. Not only the present, I don't care only for the present me, that will lead to stagnation and degradation. I don't care only for the future me, that will lead to suffocation. We need to care for both. And that's why there has to be negotiation. And lastly is the depth of our existence. That our happiness, if we are seeking happiness only at the level of the body, then we will seek more and more comforts and conveniences, and there is no end to that. And then we cannot have sustainability at that level. But if we understand that I am body, mind and soul, then we can, through practices like mantra chanting, through meditation, through spirituality, we can find non-material enrichment. And with that, we may still use the utilities provided by technology, we may still use some products because they're just unavoidable to use, but we won't use them more than necessary. And in that way, each one of us can contribute toward creating a better world. I talked about how for our growth, we need to open doors, but we also need to close trap doors. So technology can open the doors. Technology can create pathways for a better life. Technology can give us outer power. But these are trap doors that need to be closed. Our own self-sabotaging mentality that there's. These trap doors are closed through spirituality. And if you can do both these things, then that can help us usher in a new and a better world for our own good and for the good of everyone else. So it's fortunate that all of you are the premier institutes technologically here, but there's also a significant emphasis on understanding spiritual principles by which there can be holistic development. So my best wishes and prayers for all of you, so that your talents and abilities and the talents and abilities of the students that you connect with can all be tapped for the all-round good of humanity and the world at large. Thank you very much.
How to control anger or how to avoid anger?
Yeah, it's a important question. As I said,
Problem right now, you see two kinds of people are there, wise and otherwise. Their problem is because of otherwise people. So how to control it?
see, no emotion is a bad emotion. Now, anger indicates that we care. And generally, anger is an indicator that something is seriously wrong with something that is seriously important for us. We don't get angry over small things. So, anger itself is not a bad thing. Say, if we are walking by a school area and we see some bully terrorizing some small kid. Now, if we don't feel anger at that time, if we don't feel that there's something wrong out there, then there is something wrong in here. So anger itself is not a bad thing. But the problem is, anger can play two distinct roles. Anger can be a messenger. As a messenger, it tells us something is wrong. But the problem is, from the messenger, it becomes a master. So, see, anger is a very good messenger in the sense something is wrong. But the problem is that anger doesn't really clearly identify what is wrong or what is the cause of whatever is wrong. Say, if we have gone to a park for our kids to play over there, and we are sitting and talking with some other parents, and suddenly our kid comes running, "Mommy, Daddy!" As a child, we can see our kid is very upset. And says, "What happened?" "Go and beat that boy." He says, "No, tell me what." "No, go and beat that boy." And now, should we go and beat that boy? Just because our kid is telling us? Well, no. Should we tell our kid, "Shut up, don't create a scene"? No, we can't do that also. Our kid is disturbed and we need to listen to our kid to understand, okay, tell me what happened. No, go and beat that boy. Yeah. First tell me what happened. And then, once we get the kid to explain, okay, this happened. Okay, then let's go and talk with his parents. So what happens is that anger is a part of us which is like the kid. And it gets very upset, this is terrible, that is terrible, this person did like that person did like that, go and hit out at that person. So now clearly something is wrong. So if we simply express anger, that is like the parents simply listening to the kid. Listening means not just hearing, but doing what the kid is telling them. Go and beat the other kid. So if we simply express anger, then what will happen is others will burn. And after some time they will cause us to burn also. They will hit back at us. But on the other hand, if we simply repress anger, then it is like our kid is upset because of something. Shut up! Then what will happen is that kid will lose trust in us. That kid will think that, I can't count on my parents. So when things are wrong, I have to deal with it myself. So the kid may seem to be very calm, but the kid may grow up to be a terrible kid when they grows up. So what happens is, it's like the parents are telling the kid, just shut up. The parents, they talk with the kid. So for us, whenever there is anger, the first thing we need to do is, we can't just crush it, but we can't just crush others because of it. Okay, pause. So pause and try to find some safe place where we can express it. Most of the times I travel across the world, so the people I work with on my books, on my projects, it's all online. So sometimes somebody does something which really enrages me. And like I said, I had a bad temper. It's gone, but not completely gone. Every time I say it's gone, the next day it comes back. So it's more dormant than eliminated. But So I had tried to very hard to follow a policy that, whenever I'm angry, I will immediately write an email. I'll immediately express my emotions in a WhatsApp message. But I will not press send for 24 hours. For 24 hours, I will not send that message. If I keep it inside, it just burns me. Get it out, but don't get it out to somebody else. So just write it down, just speak it out. And maybe after 24 hours, I rehear the message or I reread what I said. Hey, this is very sweeping. I don't even know whether this is true. I'm assuming this is true. And even if this is true, this is too harsh a word for this. And here, maybe I need to get information from somebody else what happened. So it's till now, never has it happened if I paused for one day, I send that message as it is. I would either re-record the message completely or at least reword some of the things. And sometimes in those 24 hours, that other person only sends some message and clarifies, it was like this, it was like that. And many times the conflicts are resolved. So I would say, create some mechanism. So what does process means? 3 things. Pause. First we need to have, like sometimes you say, take a few deep breaths, chant some mantra. Don't just vent out the anger. So for processing, first we need some pausing. Now after we pause, we need some private space where we can express it. So private space could be with as I said, we could write something, put in a journal, or we need to talk with someone who will not tell it to everyone else. We need to vent it out, not to that person. Then after we have that private space, then we gain some perspective. So one of my next books is on anger management. So this whole thing I'm talking about it much more. But broadly speaking, anger management means we don't repress, we don't express, but we process. And the ideal example is the kid and the parent. So when somebody is angry, it's like our kid angry. And we need to calm our kid to understand the situation and then deal with the situation appropriately. So especially chanting some mantras and having a habit of chanting mantras can help us have a reflex action by which we can calm ourselves down. Otherwise we may think I want to pause, but I don't know how to pause. So if we have a habit of chanting mantras, at that time itself, from that habit, we will be able to chant mantras and we will be able to get a handle on ourselves. We won't just express at that time. Okay? Thank you. If we are focusing on desire rejection, that will not work. But we are focusing on desire selection. So desire rejection means I won't do this because it's bad for me. It's not sustainable. But, okay, I won't do this, although I like to do it, but I will do this. And this I like to do. So among our desires, we have to see which desires are things which I like to do, but they are also good for me. And if we are doing those things, it's like parents, again, it's that there is an inner parent inside us, there is an inner child inside us. So if the mother tells the kid, eat all this food because it is healthy for you, and none of it is tasty, the kid is not going to eat that for very long. On the other hand, the mother says, you just eat whatever is tasty, you don't eat anything healthy. Well, the kid will not live for very long also. So there has to be negotiation. Okay, you eat your salads, you eat your vegetables, then you can have a sweet, then you can have a pakoda, whatever. So like that for us, we need to negotiate with ourselves. We can't just be saying no to our desires. When we are saying yes to a higher desire, which also is good for us. So basically, if you find that things that are good for us and things that feel good for us. So if you are only here, this is just an austerity. It is tapasya. It's good, but I don't feel good doing it. Now if you are only good over here, where things feel good, but they are not good for us, then that is the path to self-destruction, to self-sabotage. We will not be able to live for long. So we need to find out what are the things which are good for us and which feel good for us. In fact, the Gita talks about the concept of swabhava and swadharma. So that is what is it? The guna karma vibhagasha, the Gita says. So the things which we have a guna for, we naturally feel good doing. So Arjuna loved archery. It was not that his guru was telling him to practice all night. He loved it so much that he would learn it in the day and would practice it late into the night. That was his Gudakesh. That was one of the reasons for his name. But he loved it and he was also good at it. And that's how he got so immersed in it. So if we want to find our passion in life, our purpose in life, try to make a list of things which we feel good doing and which we are good at doing. And see if there's an intersection of that. And then there, what will happen is, we'll be able to do something in a way that is satisfying, but that is also sustainable. That won't sabotage our future. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you for this wonderful talk. So many points, and at the end, you perfectly summarized things. So my question is from one point where you told, just touched about the power of narratives, that even though the other side was wrong, but the narrative was so nice, so well-formed that even people were influenced. Things were influenced. So today also we can see that there are so many narratives going around. At every channel, at every person has a different narrative, different thoughts. So many times it becomes difficult. We may start executing on one narrative, the other came, and it becomes difficult to see what is the urgent, what is the right, what is the most correct. So how to decide at such times?
See, I won't say that there's only one right narrative. That actually from an objective perspective, the Pandavas had more differences of opinion than the Kauravas. There's only one or two incidents where any of the Kauravas opposed Duryodhana. But there are many incidents when Bhima disagreed with Yudhishthir, when Bhima and Yudhishthir disagreed with, Bhima and Arjuna disagreed with Yudhishthir. Especially when Yudhishthir and Bhima disagreed. Nakul and Sahadev, they were more young, so they just followed the others. But even they had their opinions. So it's not that because people are virtuous, they will just be homogeneous. See, there is a big difference between homogenizing and harmonizing. So homogenizing means it's like ideological indoctrination. Everybody thinks in the same way. Everybody becomes like a robot. So the Pandavas were harmonized because they had a higher purpose. But each of them was an individual. As an individual, they had their thoughts, they had their ideas, but they agreed on major principles. So I think it's not so much one right narrative. It's more that it's a right direction. So now how to go in that right direction? There could be different opinions. And sometimes I may go your way, sometimes you may go my way. And I may find that your way is right. And sometimes you may find that my way is right. And we can agree. But it is when a person just becomes biased. You are bad and I want to destroy you. And it is in your destruction that is my happiness. See, the Vedic tradition was always very self-critical. See, for example, there was a caste system. When the caste system Varnashram became caste system, when it became discriminatory, there's an internal reform tradition in the form of the Bhakti tradition. The Bhakti saints were all themselves, from many of them, from the lower caste, and they were highly respected. So there was internal reform. So when internal reform means we ourselves recognize there's something wrong over here and we need to fix it. But somebody says this whole thing is wrong and it has to be destroyed. So for example, the South Indian politician who said Sanatan Dharma itself or Hinduism is itself like the plague or dengue or COVID. It has to be eradicated. Now when people have that kind of narrative, then there is no agreeing with them, because the only way their narrative is you should be destroyed. Then only can there be any peace in the world. But yeah, we can agree that there's something wrong with us. We are trying to fix it. If you have some ideas how to fix it, we are open to those ideas also. Now there could be something wrong with you also. So we could look at overall what is a person's broad position. And if the person has some points of merit and they are ready to listen to our points of merit, then we can come to an overall harmonization. So I think a key is two things: communication. So that is the other person ready to listen to us? Are we ready to listen to the other person? After communication, then there is negotiation. Okay, let's do this your way, let's do this my way, and let's see what works. So then we can move towards right narratives, in the sense that sometimes how do you know what is right? We may think this is right, but we implement and find it doesn't work so well. So sometimes what is right is found out through experimentation. We do it and see if it works. If it works, then well and good. So that's why I think there has to be a certain level of mutual respect, and from that respect, trust will come. But if there's no respect for the other person at all, you have no right to exist. That was what when Duryodhana said, I will not give you enough land to put even the tip of a needle through. So then how can you coexist with such a person like that? Okay?
In such a situation, like what is the best stand for the right?
Then there has to be confrontation. Now see, violence should never be the first step, but we cannot rule out violence. In fact, the fear of violence is what maintains law and order in society. During the COVID and after that, in California, they made a rule that if anybody shoplifts, anybody robs from a shop, they said if they rob anything below $750, the government will not even arrest such a person. Thought, oh, people are poor and they don't have bread to eat, and that's why they are robbing. But what did they find? These shoplifters were going and taking Louis Vuitton purses and other things, which just less than $750, and then they're selling it on eBay and other places. So, if there is no fear of law, then soon there will be no law. So there has to be some level of confrontation, or at least the other person has to have fear that there will be a confrontation. See, till the 1980s, late 1980s, there were 3 wars between India, China, Pakistan. 3-4 wars between India, China, Pakistan. Now all 3 are nuclear powers. Now at least there has been no open war. Why? There is deterrence. If we attack, the other person attacks, they have nuclear weapons. So sometimes there has to be the fear of violence to bring certain level of order. That's not the best. The best is where we both share common interests, and that's why we come together. But at the very least it is, if you hurt me, I'll hurt you back, and therefore live and let live. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Shri Chaitanya Charanji, and we are blessed to have him today. And now I request Professor Anil Haritash, our HOD, to say the word.
I express a very sincere gratitude and acknowledge your presence for this lecture on science, spirituality and sustainability. गुरुजी, धन्यवाद आपको नहीं कहेंगे, आपको बार बार आना पड़ेगा। हम सोचते थे कि we are premier engineering institute, but that was probably materialistic, and there are many things that we are probably missing in what we are claiming to be having. शायद हमारा कॉन्सेप्ट भी ठीक नहीं था। We will be taking your words in spirit, in practice, and the things that you mentioned about conceptualizing something and then implementing and transforming is probably the essence, the mantra of life. And we were not very clear about these things earlier. At least I was not that much clear. We had a very vague idea and things were not that organized as clear these are now. So we have been highly benefited by your presence and by your wisdom. So I personally feel that saying thank you to you is not right on our part. we welcome you again, sir. And we hope that you will be coming to DTU again and again. There are many things that we need to imbibe in us. And the things that you mentioned, we were probably comfortably miserable earlier. And we would probably transform ourselves and we will move to the other part. That's what we expect. And I hope whoever has been present here is highly benefited from the words, the ideas, the things that you shared with us. And we would request you to consider DTU as your home and keep blessing us whenever you are here in Delhi or around this place. And I'm also thankful to all the attendees here in this program. It was, despite being a holiday and despite being very low attendance in the campus itself, we are having probably the representation from almost every branch department here. We are happy to do that, to receive, to host you here in this program. And since today is a holiday, there are many thoughts which are coming out, but this is probably the thing that we need to discuss with us when we discuss from here and decide how to then implement and transform ourselves. But we have been very thankful to you, sir. We have with us our Director of Center for Happiness, Professor Vijay Kumar. We also have with us Professor Rajeshwari Pandey. She is the Dean, Academic Undergraduate Studies. We have Professor Deep from Department of Civil Engineering, who is heading the Human Resource Development Center of DTU. We also have devotees from ISKCON and number of research scholars, the staff members here. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. And I would request Professor Vijay Kumar and Madam Rajeshwari Pandey to please come up and as a token of our gratitude to Prabhuji, I would request Professor Vijay Kumar to offer our gratitude through a garland to Prabhuji. I also request man to offer a shawl to Prabhuji and to express our respect for him.
Keep us in your thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And we feel that we are a lot benefited, we feel a lot peaceful after this lecture, we feel a lot joyful after this lecture. And this would not have been possible if Prabhuji, Shri Vaikuntha Prabhuji, would not have been here. He arranged for this. I would request Professor Dept to express our gratitude to Prabhuji, Shri Vaikuntha Prabhuji, offering in Nagar. Finally, there have been a number of volunteers who are devotees in ISKCON. Divyansh is one of our students in aeronautical engineering. Gaurav has been coordinating with this event since the beginning. And we extend your welcome, and we also extend an invitation to help us in setting up a course on science, spirituality and sustainability, purely based on the Indian knowledge system, I guess. Since man is also here, probably she would appreciate it. And whatever Vedic culture-based lifestyle practices we can follow to make mission life a realization and to bring out positive changes in the life of people and the students here, the community here at DTU, and of course let it percolate to the society later at that stage. So we shall be very thankful, very beneficial if you help us in designing that course. So we expect that we will stay connected and we will be very soon putting up a course on Vedic culture-based sustainability practices. So we hope that we will get enough of cooperation from your side, from the side of Prabhuji Shri Chaitanya and Prabhuji Shri Prabhuji. So that's one of our humble requests to help us in that regard. And after finally, I express my sincere thanks to all of you, please. And we have arrangement for tea, which is served outside. We also have a book counter placed by ISKCON, and there is no need to go through the book to understand what is there inside once we have gone through this lecture. So here in this case, we are very fortunate that we got this opportunity. I now finally say thanks to all of you, and I invite you for a cup of tea served outside. Thank you very much.